In part 1, we exposed the stolen date, the violent saint, and deadly mistletoe. Now, it gets worse. Part 2, the walking feast, the hijacked song, the Christmas war, and greeting cards from hell. Let's continue. Act 6, the walking feast. Now, let's talk about the Christmas dinner. Specifically, the turkey. That magnificent centerpiece of the holiday meal, roasted to golden perfection. Carved ceremoniously at the table, a symbol of abundance and gratitude. But in 17th century England, getting that turkey to the table was traumatic. Turkeys weren't native to Britain. They were imported from the Americas and became fashionable among the wealthy. But refrigeration didn't exist. Transportation was primitive. So how did you get fresh turkeys from the farms of East Anglia to the markets of London, over 100 kilometers away, without them spoiling? You made them walk. That's right, turkey drives. Farmers would gather flocks of hundreds of turkeys and force them to walk the entire distance to London. On foot, step by agonizing step. The journey took up to 3 months. The turkeys were tied together with rope, herded by dogs, driven like livestock on a death march to the dinner table. But here's the problem. Turkeys weren't built for marathon journeys. Their feet would bleed. They'd become exhausted. Many would die along the way. So farmers developed a solution. They would dip the turkeys' feet in tar, then coat them in sand, creating makeshift boots that protected their feet from the rough roads. Can you imagine it? Hundreds of turkeys wearing tar and sand shoes, marching in a line across the English countryside, heading slowly, inevitably, toward Christmas dinner. It's absurd, it's tragic, it's darkly comedic. The turkey drives became a fixture of English rural life. An entire industry built around forcing birds to walk themselves to their own execution. For months, these turkeys would trek across England. And when they finally arrived in London, they were purchased, slaughtered, and served at festive meals. Your Christmas turkey, if it had been served in the 17th century, would have walked further in its lifetime than most people traveled in a year. It would have seen more of England than many peasants ever would. And then it would end up on a platter, surrounded by roasted vegetables, as families gave thanks for their blessings. The Christmas feast, built on the tired, tarred feet of birds who marched to their doom. A reminder that behind every holiday tradition, there's often a story of suffering we'd rather not examine too closely. Act 7, the Misplaced song. Let's shift to something lighter. Music, specifically, Jingle Bells. That quintessential Christmas carol, you can't escape it in December. It plays in every store, every radio station. Children sing it at school pageants. It's the sound of Christmas. Except, it's not a Christmas song at all. Jingle Bells was written in 1857 by James Lord Pierpont, a composer from Massachusetts. And when he wrote it, he wasn't thinking about Christmas. He wasn't thinking about Santa or sleighs delivering presents. He was writing about sleigh racing. Yes, sleigh racing, a popular winter sport in Massachusetts, where young men would harness horses to sleighs and race through the snow at breakneck speeds. It was dangerous, exhilarating, and apparently romantic. The song describes picking up girls, racing through the snow, crashing into snowdrifts. It's about speed and courtship and winter adventure. The song was originally titled "The One-Horse Open Sleigh," and it was performed at Thanksgiving celebrations, not Christmas, Thanksgiving. It had nothing to do with December 25th. But somehow, over the decades, Jingle Bells migrated. It got associated with winter in general, then with holiday cheer, then specifically with Christmas. By the early 20th century, it had been fully absorbed into the Christmas music canon. No one questioned it. No one pointed out the misplacement. And here's the scandalous part. When Jingle Bells was first performed, it was considered mildly inappropriate. The lyrics about picking up girls and having wild sleigh rides struck some Victorian sensibilities as too rowdy, too suggestive, not proper entertainment for respectable families. Now, it's sung by children, played in church lobbies, used in Coca-Cola commercials. A song once deemed too risque has become the most innocent, family-friendly Christmas tune imaginable. Jingle Bells isn't Christmas music that wandered into Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving music that invaded Christmas. A song about sleigh racing that accidentally became the soundtrack to a holiday it was never intended for. And every year, millions of people sing it, believing they're performing a Christmas tradition, when they're actually celebrating a Massachusetts sleigh race from 1857. The music of Christmas, like everything else about the holiday, is built on beautiful, accidental lies. Act 8, The War on Christmas, by Christians. Now we arrive at perhaps the most ironic chapter in Christmas history, the time when Christmas itself was banned. Not by secularists, not by atheists, not by the so-called war on Christmas that modern pundits complain about. Number, Christmas was banned by Christians, devout, Bible-believing, hardcore Christians who looked at the holiday and saw corruption. The year was 1647. England was in the grip of the English Civil War. The Puritans, radical Protestant reformers, had gained control of Parliament, and they looked at Christmas with absolute disgust. Why? Because Christmas had become exactly what the early church had designed it to be, a continuation of pagan festivities. The feasting, the drinking, the partying, the social disorder. To the Puritans, Christmas was a mockery of true Christianity. It had no basis in Scripture. The Bible never commanded anyone to celebrate Christ's birth. The date was fabricated. The customs were pagan. The whole thing was a festival of excess and idolatry. So Parliament banned it completely. Christmas was outlawed throughout England. Shops were ordered to stay open on December 25th. Church services were forbidden. Anyone caught celebrating was subject to punishment. The Puritans replaced Christmas with a day of fasting and repentance. Instead of feasting and joy, prayer and self-denial. Instead of celebration, somber reflection on sin. The most joyful day of the Christian calendar, erased by Christians themselves. And it wasn't just England. In 1659, the Massachusetts Bay Colony, founded by Puritans, passed a law making Christmas celebration illegal. Anyone caught feasting, staying home from work, or showing any sign of holiday cheer on December 25th would be fined 5 shillings. Police patrolled the streets, shouting, "No Christmas! No Christmas!" arresting violators.
Can you imagine? A war on Christmas led by the most devout Christians in America.
Not to secularize the holiday, but to eliminate it entirely.
The Puritans saw Christmas for what it truly was, a pagan festival in Christian disguise. A continuation of Saturnalia, a compromise with Roman culture. They refused to participate in the lie, and so they tried to destroy it. Of course, they failed. Human beings love their festivals too much. Christmas was too deeply embedded in popular culture. When the Puritans lost power, Christmas came roaring back. Bigger, more excessive, more commercial than ever. But for nearly 2 decades, in the most Christian nations on earth, Christmas was a crime. Punishable by law, enforced by religious police. The first war on Christmas. Launched not by secularists, but by believers who dared to ask, is this really Christian at all? It's a question modern Christmas celebrants would rather not confront. Act 9. The Gift of Chaos. We've already mentioned Saturnalia, but let's return to it now. Because the tradition of gift-giving, that central pillar of modern Christmas, deserves a closer look. It's not just inspired by Saturnalia, it's a direct continuation of it. In ancient Rome, Saturnalia gifts weren't like modern Christmas presents. They weren't thoughtful. They weren't sentimental. They were GAG gifts, joke presents designed to mock and amuse. Romans would give each other absurd, useless items, silly trinkets, objects meant to embarrass. The point wasn't generosity, it was humor. During the festival's 7 days, the social order collapsed. Masters served slaves. Slaves mocked masters. Gambling was legal. Public drunkenness was encouraged. The city descended into controlled anarchy. And in the midst of this chaos, people exchanged gifts that reflected the absurdity of the moment. This is the tradition the Christian church borrowed. The 3 wise men bringing gifts to baby Jesus? That's biblical, yes. But the widespread custom of everyone exchanging presents? That's pure Saturnalia. The church tried to sanctify it, tried to make it about the Magi's gold, frankincense and myrrh, but the practice remained fundamentally pagan. And here's what's fascinating. Saturnalia was scheduled from December 17th to the 23rd. The church placed Christmas on December 25th, just barely outside Saturnalia's official dates. Just close enough that the transition would feel natural, the parties could continue. The gift-giving could continue, just under a new theological framework. The early church didn't replace Saturnalia. They absorbed it. They took the wild, wine-soaked energy of Rome's favorite festival, stripped away the most offensive elements, kept the gift-giving and feasting, and rebranded it as the celebration of Christ's birth. And it worked too well, because now, 2,000 years later, Christmas is more commercial than spiritual, more about presents than prayers, more about shopping than shepherds. We complain about the commercialization of Christmas. But Christmas was always commercial. It was born from a commercial festival. The seeds of Black Friday, of shopping stampedes, of consumer frenzy were planted in ancient Rome during Saturnalia. The tradition of gift-giving, the pressure to buy the perfect present, the stress of holiday shopping, that's not a modern corruption. That's Christmas returning to its true origins. Saturnalia never died. It just changed its name. Act 10. The Nightmare Before Christmas. Finally, let's talk about Victorian Christmas cards. because this is where the story gets genuinely bizarre. The first commercial Christmas card was created in 1843 in England.
Sir Henry Cole, a civil servant, a commissioned artist.
John Calcott Horsley to design a card he could send to friends and associates. The result was charming. A family gathered around a table, raising glasses. Simple, festive.
But once the floodgates opened, Victorian Christmas cards became weird.
Not cute, not sentimental, disturbing. Victorian-era Christmas cards featured images that would be unthinkable today.
Dead birds lying in the snow, frogs wielding knives and attacking people, children being boiled alive in teapots, mice riding lobsters into battle.
These weren't joke cards. These weren't rare oddities. These were mainstream Christmas greetings. What was the Victorian obsession with macabre Christmas imagery?
Historians believe it reflects the darker humor of the era. The Victorians had a morbid fascination with death. Child mortality was high, disease was rampant, life was precarious, and so their humor, their art, their Christmas cards reflected a kind of gallows humor, a way of laughing at mortality. But there's another theory. Some of these cards may have been inspired by folk traditions, rural customs, dark fairy tales. The Victorians were obsessed with preserving authentic folklore, even when that folklore was genuinely disturbing. So Christmas cards featuring dead robins? Those may have referenced winter mortality, the harsh reality that not all creatures survive the season. Cards showing frogs with weapons, possibly references to old folk tales about animals behaving like humans during Christmas, an echo of Saturnalia's social inversions. Whatever the reason, early Christmas cards were nightmares. They looked like illustrations from a horror story, and Victorian families would receive them and display them and presumably feel festive. Over time, of course, Christmas cards became sanitized. By the early 20th century, they featured snow scenes, cute animals, angels, Santa Claus.
All the macabre imagery was scrubbed away. Christmas became safe, predictable, boring. But for a brief period in the 19th century, sending someone a Christmas card meant sending them an image of a frog committing murder.
And that, somehow, was considered appropriate holiday cheer.
The Victorian Christmas card, a window into a stranger, darker vision of the holiday. A reminder that our current saccharine version of Christmas is very, very recent, and that the Victorians, who largely invented modern Christmas, had a much more complex, unsettling relationship with the season. So here we are, at the end of our journey through Christmas, through 2,000 years of history, mythology, marketing, and myth-making. And what have we learned? That nothing about Christmas is what it seems. Every tradition we hold dear, every symbol we cherish, every ritual we perform, has been twisted, transformed, repurposed, and repackaged over centuries. Christmas isn't an ancient, unchanged holy day. It's a palimpsest. Layer upon layer of culture, commerce, religion, and accident. And yet, does that make it less meaningful? Perhaps not. Perhaps the true magic of Christmas is its ability to absorb everything, To take pagan festivals and Christian theology and royal marketing and corporate branding and folk superstitions and childhood wonder and meld them into something that feels timeless, that feels sacred, even when it's not. Christmas is humanity's collaborative fiction, our shared dream. We've been building it for millennia, adding pieces, changing details, forgetting origins, inventing new meanings. And the result is beautiful, flawed, hypocritical, nostalgic, commercial, spiritual, all at once. You can celebrate Christmas knowing its dark origins, or you can celebrate it innocently, believing the myths. Either way, you're participating in one of humanity's longest-running cultural experiments. A holiday that has survived Puritan bans, religious reformation, industrial revolution, and late-stage capitalism. Christmas adapts. Christmas persists. Christmas transforms. Does the truth even matter? Christmas is a lie, a beautiful, necessary, ever-evolving lie. And every year, we gather together and we tell it again. Because some lies are more true than facts. Some myths are more real than history. And Christmas, dark origins and all, endures. This is the story they don't want you to know. This is the history hidden beneath the tinsel and wrapping paper. This is Christmas, unmasked. And now, you can never celebrate it the same way again. But perhaps you'll celebrate it more honestly, more aware, more appreciative of the strange, twisted, beautiful journey that brought us here. To this moment, this season, this shared illusion we call Christmas.